And I give the call to the honourable member for Higgins.
Thank you, Speaker. There is a generation of young men who do not wish to follow in their father's footsteps. They've seen the trade-off of long hours against time spent with family. They've seen the neglect of relationships and impacts on their partners. They want family and rather than or work. When it comes to raising a child, decisions made in the earliest time of a child's life lock in patterns of parenting for years to come. An Australian woman does more caring and twice as much housework, even a decade after the birth of the first child. In other words, having children worsens the gendered division of work at home, which persists for years to come, serving neither the mum nor the dad's relationship. A survey of 842 men conducted by the Australian recruitment agency Hayes in 2019 indicated that 80% of men believe that shared parental leave and child-rearing responsibility would help break down unconscious bias and improve gender diversity. Australian businesses are stepping up because they've put two and two together. They've realised that equal PPL schemes are good for their bottom line because they help to retain talent, and we are in a war for talent. In this war, every edge matters. PwC reported a reduction in the proportion of its staff who resign while on paid parental leave, from 6.4% in 2017, before the more flexible option was introduced, to 3.3% in 2021. Deloitte introduced similar leave entitlements for mothers and fathers in 2015 and saw an increase in the uptake of parental leave among fathers from 20% to 40%. I have caught a glimpse of this new generation of fathers. They have stood shoulder to shoulder with their partners in campaigning for the protection of childcare in Higgins. The early childhood education centres in Carnegie and Murrumbeena will close in March. These beloved centres have been a pillar of our community since the 1990s. Small in size, they have seen at least a generation of children passing through their doors. One of these children who passed through the doors is now a doctor. The educators have been there for decades, some as long as 26 years. Such tenure is unheard of in the early childhood education sector. They are caring, professional and dearly loved by parents and children whom they service. Every child feels accepted, including many children with chronic conditions like epilepsy and autism. Now, as the closure of these centres looms, the parents are understandably disappointed after campaigning hard to have this decision overturned. Theirs was a parent-led campaign with a petition garnering over 7,000 signatures, a rally outside the town hall, coverage in the media. The parents pleaded with Glen Ira Council to slow down the process, rethink their decision and invest rather than divest in what were clearly community assets. If it were a lithium mine, nobody would be countenancing shutting it down. These parents championed this cause on top of their day jobs as teachers, lawyers, doctors, nurses, business owners, public administrators. Why? Because early childhood education delivered by community is a highly trusted source and has care standards above the national average. Community-based childcare accounts for 42% of the childcare sector, according to a report by CELA and other organisations, positioned competitively against 49% private for-profit providers. While affordable, accessible early learning and care is a linchpin for working families, it is not enough in our pursuit of gender parity. According to Treasury, women reduced their hours of paid work by 35% over the first 5 years following the birth of their children. Part-time becomes permanent part-time, with all its flow-on impacts to individuals and the economy. We need to do more. It was for this reason that the Gillard Labor government introduced paid parental leave in 2011, and it is the Albanese Labor government that has picked up the baton dropped under those opposite. The Libs presided over spiralling childcare costs and turned a blind eye to a stagnant, moribund gender pay gap. They watched as Australia languished on the World Economic Forum's Global Gender Gap Index, falling to 43rd place. In just over a year, we have climbed 17 places on that index, the largest increase since the index began in 2006. In just over a year, we have made the gender pay gap the lowest in Commonwealth history, at 13%, down from 14.1% in August of last year. But we have more to do. In just over a year, we now have a record high participation rate for women at nearly 63% in May of last year. With 53% women in our ranks, the highest in Commonwealth history, the Albanese government unapologetically drives a hard agenda when it comes to supporting women. But we need to do more. Why is reform to PPL, paid parental leave, important? Because stereotypical gender norms that lock men in as breadwinners and women as homemakers who are also tethered to part-time work, start in those early weeks when baby comes home. Part-time work is fine if it is a real choice, but for too many women who seek to return to full-time work, they find themselves denied career progression. To put it bluntly, less pay means fewer assets, less super and greater vulnerability in the face of those curveballs in life, like relationship breakdown, bereavement, or job loss. This is one of the reasons the gender pay gap is so pernicious. Approximately 180,000 parents in Australia and 960 in Higgins will benefit from this scheme. Our bill will expand access to the scheme and provide more flexibility from families. The value of getting new fathers to spend more time with their babies in the early years cannot be overstated. The bill expands paid parental leave from 20 to 26 weeks, increasing the period reserved for each parent from 2 to 4 weeks and doubling the period that parents can take leave simultaneously from 2 to 4 weeks. These reforms will provide much-needed support to mums after childbirth, encouraging dads and partners to spend more time with their children in those formative years. But we also acknowledge, Mr. Speaker, that there are calls for expanding the scheme even further, but we need to see that cultural shift occur in corporate Australia, where it becomes acceptable for working fathers to take much longer periods of time in order to be there in that early period when baby comes home. This bill strikes the balance between supporting mums, encouraging dads to take leave, and providing families with flexibility in structuring their care arrangements. The bill sends a clear message. Parenting is an equal partnership and should be treated as such. We would like corporate Australia to take heed. It's good for parents, it's good for bubs, it's good for employers, and it's good for the economy. This is exactly the kind of critical infrastructure we need to support in Australia and champion. I commend this bill to the House.